Good evening and welcome to the Pittsford Board of Education meeting. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a motion to approve the agenda this evening? Thanks, Robin and Sarah. Any edits? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Principal's report. Dr. Balsamo is here from Park Road Elementary School. We welcome you, Dr. Balsamo, and thank you so much for our recent tour. We appreciate that.
Can I have a team? So thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present to you tonight on the opening of Park Road for the school year and our plans for some of the work that we're going to be doing this school year. Joining me tonight in talking about Park Road are Tammy Fracci, our library media specialist, Angie Stewart at 2nd grade, Spencer Jones at 3rd grade, and Katie Greco at 1st grade. So while this August was not a typical opening, the weeks prior to the start of this school year were certainly a lot more relaxed than the weeks preceding the start of the school year a year ago. We knew a lot earlier this school year what we could do in terms of spacing of students and schedules. You know, I think back to the end of August last year, we didn't even know how we would handle dismissal when we knew that over 2/3 of our parents would be picking kids up every school day. So while this August wasn't stress-free, it was a lot different than we were over a year ago. So we wanted to take an opportunity to talk a little bit about the difference a year brings, and that was then, and this is now, pictures from what school looked like last year compared to what it does this year. And I know the board had an opportunity to see how our classes are set up for this school year at our recent visit. But again, I'd be remiss in not sharing how significantly different things were last year and how much we have to celebrate in terms of what we're able to do for our students this school year. So last year, our classrooms were potted, so 20 kids in groups of 10 into 2 different classrooms. All of our kids, even kindergartners, were in desks and rows. We used a lot of unusual spaces last year. Our gyms and our libraries were turned into classrooms. For much of the school year, all of our special area teachers were on carts. Our gyms and our library were being used as classes, so all of our special area teachers were pushing into rooms on carts. And as colorful as they are, I don't think Mrs. Fracci will miss her cart at all. She got a good workout in pushing that cart around every day. Our special area teachers had to be really creative last year. We didn't have gym space last year because our gyms were 5th grade classrooms, so the 5th grade teachers were outside every day and doing some really creative events. We had turned our stage into a staff room because our staff room was being used as a 2nd grade pod. We filled nearly 2 verties were filled to the brim with furniture from the classroom. Our custodians literally took apart tables, classroom tables and kidney tables, and our circulation desk from our library, and all that stuff was stored in verties. You can see a picture of Mr. Pitnero and I doing our dismissal duty every day, trying to manage the parking lot. It was great on those 70-degree and sunny days, not so much in January and February. June brought moving days, and we had a very carefully sequenced set of days whereby we pulled things out of the verties, and grade level by grade level we had to sequence our moves, because moving one grade level into a set of classrooms required other people to move out. And big shout out to our custodians who did a phenomenal job in putting things back together. I was so impressed that when they put stuff away a whole year ago, like they had things labeled and they had to take all the tables apart, so they taped the table legs together, all those things you wouldn't have thought about in that panic of August of 2020. So we were able to put things back very quickly, and most of the teachers felt really good by the time they left in June about how their classrooms were looking. So a big shout out to all the custodians at Park Road and in Pittsford for the work that they did this summer. Now, this is one of my favorite pictures from last year, kind of a back to where we belong. So here's Mr. Jones standing here, putting his name back on his original classroom on one of the last days after kids had left in June. And we had similar, pictures throughout the classroom because everyone was getting back to go to their original homes. There were some new traditions that we got to start last year. We had the graduating seniors came and we did the celebration for them with an outdoor parade. We repeated that a few days later. We couldn't do the traditional students leaving in the bus loop with the honking, so we did a parade for our students and our retirees. We did our moving up day outdoors last year. So those are things we thought went really well, and those are things that we're going to continue because they went so well last year. So there's a lot of things that are now back this year at Park Road and all the other schools in Pittsford. Things that we developmentally appropriate practices and furniture that we didn't have last year, like students being able to work in ELA and math centers, teachers being able to work with small groups of kids at kidney tables. We're still distanced apart, and it's not as the groups aren't as big as they were, but that's all back, and it just feels like a very typical elementary approach and classroom again. Things like Instructional Challenge are up and running again. That was a program that we didn't offer last year because those teachers were serving as classroom teachers. You'll still see simple things like kindergartners bringing in blankets for quiet time. Those were things we didn't do last year, and that we're back to doing again this year. We still have lots of darts on carpets so that we know the kids have that visual of keeping socially distanced from one another. All of our special area teachers are back in their respective homes, and that means gym or physical education is in the gym again. All of our students have full access to the library. So imagine last year they had access to the books that Mrs. Fracci had pulled for them, but only the books that she could put on a cart. So the full access to the library and all the research opportunities that presents are back to us again and all of our students. There are things that didn't exist at all last year. We didn't have any of our performing groups last year, so no band, orchestra, or chorus. So it was really exciting a couple of weeks ago to see students walking around with instruments and starting their first lessons. And our rehearsal groups begin to start up next week. So we'll have kids after school being able to participate in these performing groups. And those are things that our 4th and 5th graders didn't get a chance to do last year. There's still adjustments that we're making. The cafeteria is a big adjustment. So we can only seat about half the number of kids at a cafeteria table that we would typically be able to seat. So we pulled desks into the cafeterias to allow kids to sit socially distanced apart. And we even turned a classroom into an auxiliary cafeteria. And on one of the first days of school, one of the classes in there was complaining to me a little bit about that, and I convinced them that this was our executive VIP dining room. So they think they're very important now that they get to sit in that room. So last year our goals were pretty simple, just taking it one day at a time and surviving the school year. But this year feels like a normal year. Obviously, safety and security are our primary focus, but we feel good about goals that we're setting for ourselves, and we're going to work on these more at our upcoming conference day on Friday, but things focused on connections and relationship building, focusing on instructional essentials and consistency across grade level, and we're going to be rebooting some of our PLC work on Friday and giving teams an opportunity to work together and set some goals. We have some different academic screening tools that we're using this year that we're learning how to analyze and use with students. And obviously that we're continuing to focus on inclusivity, both as adults in the buildings, but also in the work that we do with kids.
Hi, I'm Angie Stewart. I teach 2nd grade at Park Road. Our goal this year is to foster both our classroom and the school-wide community. All of our classrooms are holding class meetings every day to build peer-to-peer connections. Many classes are also engaging in a second recess to encourage peers to socialize and continue to build connections. All classes will also connect with a buddy classroom each month. At 2nd grade, class meetings have strengthened our class communities. Students begin circle with a breathing exercise to calm our minds and bodies. We greet each other by name, share a celebration, an expression of gratitude, or even a joke on Funny Friday. That's my favorite. We play a quick game to start the day in a positive way, and we end circle with a listening activity to transition to the learning for the day. A community circle brings together individuals who share a set of values to build relationships and at times to solve conflict. In the circle, everyone is an equal participant whose voice and opinions are valued. Circles provide an opportunity to come together in a safe, supportive, and enjoyable way to learn more about each other and to grow as a team. Some of our staff members have received training in leading community circles and will be sharing their knowledge at the upcoming staff meetings.
Hello, I'm Katie Greco, first grade at Park Road. And I know Mark had mentioned second recess. Our students love it, of course. They get another opportunity to play and usually go outside if the weather permits. And of course, we've also found benefits from second recess, and the kids not only get to get their wiggles out and then come back and learn, but it also has built our community even more because they have that time to socialize, which they have missed out on in the past year or so.
Good evening, I'm Spencer Jones. I teach third grade at Park. At Park Road, we've agreed that it's important for our students to foster connections outside of our individual classrooms. So we have cross-grade level buddies. Each grade level is paired with another in this manner: kindergarten and second grade, first and fourth grade, and then third and fifth grade. We meet monthly or more frequently with our buddy classes to engage in fun group activities or to connect on curricular projects. This month, for example, our fourth grade buddies worked on computer skills with the first graders. And the third and fifth graders each connected to play games that were called Common Ground and also Take a Step. Those two different games are designed to get kids out and together and help them to get to know each other better. Previous buddy classroom projects have included shared writing and editing activities across the grade levels, and also creating poetry posters to decorate our hallways at Park Road. We also have fifth grade hallway buddies and safety patrol. Our older and younger students connect through these programs. They align a couple of helpful older students to each of our K and 1 classrooms at the end of the day. These older students help to ensure a smooth and safe dismissal time and take care of our youngest students. Our fifth graders also have the opportunity to join safety patrol. The kids are stationed outside, and they're also stationed in our hallways during morning arrival and also afternoon dismissal. In the morning, our safeties are like the Walmart greeters of Park Road School. They exchange friendly hellos and good mornings with the staff and also with the other students as they arrive. They also remind others to please walk or please be safe in the hallway. As well, they help locate the owners of lost belongings that are found either in the lobby or the bus, and that happens pretty much every day. We're proud to be Pittsford's only elementary school that has fifth, fourth, and also third graders on our student council. It's a tradition that dates back at Park Road School for more than 20 years now. Student council will be kicking off in the coming weeks again, and we're excited to be able to jumpstart collaboration, particularly with our SEL team. Our goal is to provide increased opportunity for student voice within the school, along with participation in community activities, like our shoebox gift program with the Pittsford Food Cupboard, which is another tradition at Park Road. As well, the return of lunch with the principal gives Mark an opportunity to learn directly about the state of our school from the mouths of our children and through their eyes of experience in our building. We're also considering other ways to continue to build student feedback and student voice into our school and our daily practices every day.
And I just want to jump in and add that a lot of those opportunities were opportunities that we didn't have for students last year, in terms of not having a student council and not having safeties, because we were trying to keep the kids socially distanced. So the opportunity to bring these back and rethink them and give students an opportunity for voice and say in their school are an important part of the work that we're doing this year. And it's exciting to see all these fifth graders getting so involved in our school community again.
This year, we're excited that we started using AimsWeb as a tool for screening and monitoring student progress. And it's a quick way to uncover learning gaps. In the past, we've used F&P reading assessments, which are also wonderful, but usually we don't have those results until mid-October. The Ames Web screening has allowed us to get results within the first week of school and target kids who are at risk or need extra support in reading and math. We also have student success meetings 3 times throughout the year. We meet as a grade level team and invite our reading teachers, math support person, counselor, and anyone else needed to discuss next steps for students. If we find a student that maybe is an outlier or has some additional needs, then the teacher will refer them to IST and work with that team as well.
Hi, I'm Tammy Fracci. I'm the librarian at Park Road. Some ways that we promote and celebrate equity, diversity, and inclusivity at Park Road are through professional development, our Book of the Month and Book a Day programs, ongoing informal evaluations and audits of our library and classroom collections, and creation of visual displays featuring both student content and informational content for students, and a continued awareness of family backgrounds and compositions in individual classrooms. Additionally, we continue working on our social studies curriculum and its piloting. One way, as mentioned, that we provide learning experiences to our students through diverse literature is with our Book of the Month program. Each month, a book is selected by a subcommittee of our SEL team, and a staff or faculty member records him or herself reading the book to students. The recording is then shared in all classrooms on the same day or throughout the course of the same week. Additionally, extension activities are provided to teachers so they may continue to use the book throughout the month. We kicked off in September with our first Book of the Month this year, Your Name is a Song by Jamila Tompkins Bigelow. And in conjunction with each Book of the Month, each student in the school creates a component of a visual display that ties into the story. For Your Name is a Song, students decorated music notes with their names and whatever else they thought might represent them. Our Book of the Month for October will be Outside Inside by Leywin Pham. This book is an important one as we continue to make adjustments related to COVID-19. It provides a gateway to talk with our students about some of the impacts we now feel and some of the changes that have taken place because of COVID at home, at school, and everywhere. Another way we incorporate diverse literature into classrooms and throughout the school is through the Book a Day program run by the library. For those teachers who are interested, I select 5 books each week to send in a book bag down to classrooms. Titles are chosen with the grade levels in mind, as well as the season and any current cultural celebrations. Each class then reads one of the picture books each day at whatever time is best. On Fridays, I pick the bags up from the classrooms and repeat the process the following week with all new books. This is a great way to get some of our newer titles into the hands of teachers and in front of students. Additionally, because classroom teachers are able to see more books from the library, they gain a wider understanding of the collection and are exposed to books that might fit well into their curriculum in the future. We also incorporate various displays throughout the school to emphasize diversity at different times throughout the year. Last year, we hung over 60 posters around the school honoring individuals as part of Black History Month. These posters included individuals' names along with what they are known for, in addition to QR codes that could be scanned by staff or students using an iPad. The QR codes link to more information about each individual through Pebble Go, an elementary database to which the district subscribes. And a current example is a Hispanic Heritage Month display located outside of our library. Our art teacher, Amanda Kirkaby, is very focused on highlighting the work of many artists from different cultures and backgrounds. For example, last year's second grade students were exposed to the work of African-American artist Alma Woodsey Thomas. They used watercolor to paint concentric circles in a similar style. Students in second grade also learned about the art of Yayoi Kusama, a contemporary Japanese artist. Students created infinity pumpkins after reading a picture book about Kusama and learning about her struggles as a woman getting noticed in the art world.
This past summer, teams from each school worked with Melanie Ward to examine our social studies curriculum at the K-5 level through the lens of inclusivity. At first grade, we worked on modifying one of our units to include social justice standards and revamp our materials, such as books that we read throughout the unit. We modified our current unit on families. How can families be the same and different? 6 of our teachers are currently piloting the unit right now, myself being one of them, and it's a really fun unit, and the kids are loving it. And we are talking about different types of families, our own families, and what makes us unique.
In second grade, we engage in an inquiry unit called Do We Have to Have Rules? In our curriculum work this summer, we deconstructed and rebuilt this unit to align with the social justice standards, identity, diversity, justice, and action. I am piloting this new unit in my classroom this fall, along with a team of second grade teachers in the district. During this inquiry, students have been analyzing the importance of rules, considering the impact of not having rules, writing a classroom compact that reflects our shared values, and then exploring restorative practices to repair the classroom community when rules are not being followed.
We are going to continue to use Seesaw and Microsoft Teams as a way to supplement learning and as a communication platform. We started using it during the shutdown and during COVID, and we have found great benefits from both, so we're going to continue using. Seesaw is for grades K through 3, and Teams is for 3 through 5. We have discovered many benefits to both platforms, including an easy communication to both students and their families, and it's also a great way for students to learn technology skills while also learning curriculum at the same time.
Although COVID still impacts our school, we are looking forward to returning to some of our fun and beloved traditions that we missed last year.
In the past, these have included our Welcome Back picnic, holiday sing-alongs, our Halloween parade, a Flag Day commemoration, scholastic book fairs, field days, and our annual student talent show. So here are some photos of those things.
So we wanted to thank you for the opportunity tonight to present on how our school year is open and all the things that we have planned for our students at Park Road this upcoming school year. Again, not 100% normal, but we're really excited about where we are in terms of the opening of the school year and what we're able to do for the students in our school community.
Thank you so much, Dr. Balsamo. We appreciate it. And team, wonderful job presenting to us this evening. And again, thank you for your time tonight. It was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add, it's amazing to see the work that you are doing coming back. Appreciate your focus on the students' well-being as we work on this transition, and both curricular and through SEL. And the weaving of the two is extremely critical. And I forget who does the jokes on Fridays.
We have funny Fridays.
Okay, so I would just ask you, what did one French fry say to the other French fry during their class reunion? It's nice to catch up. So feel free to bring that. Feel free to bring that to your Friday group. Thanks, everyone.
I know. No. May I have an approval of the minutes from September 14th, please? Thanks, Pete and Renee. Any edits to those? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. We have a variety of Board of Education reports. Monroe County School Boards is up and running. We have a lot of meetings scheduled within the next couple of weeks. This week, we do have our legislative meeting tomorrow, and we also have the Executive Committee tomorrow evening. And then we also have our other regular committees. Our board leadership is not until November. Information exchange is the 13th of October, and steering committee is the 10th of November. Just make sure that you're following your calendars as to where the venue is, because that does change based on the meeting. And also, again, let Deb know if you're planning to attend. Dates to remember. We do have a board tour at Thornell Road at 7:15 a.m. Again, that's just a tour, no coffee. And that's on the 7th. That's this week. If I could just have a show of hands of who will be there. Okay. Thank you. Schools will be closed for Superintendent's Conference Day this Friday. And then on Monday, schools will be closed again for Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day recess. And our next regularly scheduled meeting will be the 19th of October. Financial report, Darren.
Thank you. First is the Treasurer's report for the year ended June 30, 2021. You may notice some subtle differences between that and the audit report that we'll be dealing with next. That's because the Treasurer's report is based on the cash basis of accounting, just cash coming in and out, versus the accrual basis, which we do our reporting on. Overall, we received almost 1% more in revenue than we budgeted, and we spent about 5% less than what we budgeted for the year. So we had a little bit of a surplus there. The school lunch fund, no surprises, we've talked before. If you back out the general fund assistance, was down about 40% in revenue, $500,000. We did not need a transfer to from the general fund as much as we originally thought we would in the beginning of the year, so that's good news. Looking at so far this year, our participation's up about 60% over the same period of time last year.
Great.
Okay. So that's the high points for the Treasurer's report.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the Treasurer's report, please? Renee and Sarah, any questions? All.
I'm sorry,
Yes,
just
go
really,
ahead.
Darren, is that increase, this year's increase in terms of number of meals served or?
Number of meals served, and we also track by percentage of average daily participation. So looking at the average number of kids in the building and how many are buying.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
We took an all in favor. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Next is the extracurricular activities report. Obviously, last year we had less clubs operating, so the amount of activity is less than the year before, and that is in the process of being audited by the independent auditors as we speak.
May I have a motion, please? Jeff, Pete, questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay. And next is the external audit report and management letter. I don't know, Renee, do you want to say anything on behalf of the Audit Oversight Committee?
Just a couple of quick things to mention. We had our Audit Oversight Committee last Wednesday, September 28th. It started off, unfortunately, I had to come a little bit late, but it started off with the Claims Auditor report by Cindy Haggerty. She just gave quick reviews on her duties daily, monthly, and an annual basis. She offered then to our new members, Robin and Jeff, congratulations, we're glad that you're a part of this new committee. Gave examples of purchase orders. Some of the things that we talked about is that, and this I've found absolutely amazing, is that in the past fiscal year 2021, we had more than 10,000 transactions, and Cindy, audits all of those transactions. And despite all of the, COVID needs that we had, less than 1% of the errors that were made were either policy or procedural errors. They were all rectified, and 3% were simple clerical errors. And there were no instances of fraud, and that's outstanding. Over 10,000 transactions. That is impressive. We also talked about taking a look at the new board policy, which was in our packet for tonight. We have our first reading. We also heard a very extensive report, and Darren, I'm kind of hoping you can talk more more to this. Tom Zuber, he's a partner at Mengel, Metzger, and Barr. He does an extraordinarily phenomenal and very in-depth job in going over our audit report. But I'm going to pass that back to you to talk about the very specifics of that.
So Tom started out by talking about from looking at all the other school districts, and the firm audits a lot of school districts throughout the state. The key word that he described last year was uncertainty. Schools had to deal with a lot of uncertainty, including financial uncertainty. Everything from the state withholding transportation aid after the fact because of the year before, unemployment, et cetera. He felt that the district did an extraordinarily good job of dealing with uncertainty, and that's because of our past practice of preparing for it. We were well prepped, as well as not overextending ourselves at the moment so that we were in a questionable position for into the future. Our balance sheet, real quickly, I'm going to back up for a second. He talked about the huge 65-page audit report. Most of that are things that the Government Accounting Standards Board is required to be in there. And those reports are basically taking our financial data and trying to make it similar to a corporate report. And it's not real useful. Even Moody's Investor Services, and if you're borrowing in New York, in stock exchange, et cetera, they don't even look at those reports very much. So he said to draw the attention to the management discussion analysis, which is about 7 pages in the beginning of the report. Our balance sheet is good. You will notice that our fund equity decreased by about $1.8 million. That's because of the voters approved the capital project, so $6 million came out of the capital reserve. We were able to put over $7 million back into reserves, the various reserves, which you recall doing in September. And our surplus was about 5%, which he's finding to be on par with most school districts that they audit.
Okay. Renee, congratulations on being the chair of that committee.
I was going to skip over that part.
Okay.
Yes.
Congratulations.
And for the record, they didn't vote on that prior to her coming to the meeting.
I was going to ask if she was there while you voted on that.
She was there.
Okay. All right. May I have a motion, please, to approve? Renee and Sarah, questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Human Resource Report, Sean.
Good evening. First, for your consideration, we have the professional staff report. We have a part-time physical education staff appointment, part-time to full-time previous tenure appointment. We have 8 school-related professional appointments, 3 resignations for school nurse teacher, a nurse, and an SRP. And finally, we have an SRP resignation for retirement for Kevin Ebling with over 14 years of service to the district.
May I have a motion, please? Jeff and Pete? Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. Next for your consideration is the support staff report. We have 2 clerical appointments and 1 night supervisor cleaner appointment, 2 bus driver resignations. We have resignations for a part-time clerk and 2 school aides. And in that, I'd like to recognize Mary DePoy and her 19 years of service to the district. And finally, resignation for retirement for Tricia Kane in our Student Services Department with over 17 years of service to the district.
May I have a motion, please? Thanks, Robin and Sarah. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Curriculum report, Melanie.
Good evening. I am very pleased tonight to welcome Casey Sanderson here. He is the standards leader for our business education department, and he is here tonight to share with the board and the audience the process that the business department has gone through over the last couple of years to be recognized at the state level for CTE endorsement. And Casey's presentation will explain what that means. Before he launches into that, I do just feel a need to acknowledge the heavy lift that this work involved, many hours, really intense work on the part of the business department. The work started a few years ago prior to the COVID closure, but under Casey's leadership, they never missed a beat throughout the closure and the temporary learning models last year. They continued to work tirelessly to put this project together to get our business program recognized at the state level. So thank you, and thank all of your teachers for all that you did.
I certainly will, and thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So good evening, everybody. My name is Casey Sanderson. I teach business at Mendon High School, as well as I am the standards leader for business education in the Pittsford district. This evening, I'm going to talk to you about the process involved in the benefits of our CTE certification. But first, I'd like to start just by introducing our department a little bit. We have one of the largest business departments for the size of school in New York State. We have 10 business teachers who are divided almost equally between the two schools, depending on the year. Almost always one teacher will travel between the two, depending on needs at the two schools. And we currently offer 18 different classes, which is more than just about any other school, again, our size in the Rochester area. We teach everything from keyboarding to accounting, to virtual enterprise and digital business strategies. And very many of these classes come with associated college credits. So the students can earn dual enrollment, high school credit and college credit while they're in the classroom. But this evening, I'm here to talk to you about CTE. And CTE stands for Career and Technical Education, not concussions, as we were talking about a little bit before the meeting started. CTE is instruction that prepares students with the technical, academic, and behavioral skills to be successful in careers and future education. So why us? Why now? The simple answer to this question is it's what's best for our kids. We took a really hard look at what CTE, the CTE endorsement does, and what we found is that we have students in the Pittsford district who qualify for this endorsement on their diploma and are already doing the work. So by not being CTE certified, we were not allowing them to have that acknowledgement for the wonderful work that they're currently doing. It allows us to acknowledge that greatness in all of our students. It also encourages us to have a format to keep pace with the rapidly changing world of work. And it ensures that we're keeping ourselves and our students college and career ready. It really gives us direct accountability to our most important stakeholders, our students and our parents. And again, it's really about this was not, I really want to emphasize this, that this was not something that anyone came to us and said, we need you to do. It really was something that we knew we wanted to do because we felt it was what's right for our students. So what is CTE and how do we get there? I have to admit the process was not always great. When we look at this, these are all the same person. So when we started, it was awkward. It was hard. It really, and we'll get into it a little bit over the next couple of slides. It currently is going very well. You know, we have been certified by the state, and what we're really looking forward to is the future of where CTE can bring the business education department here at Pittsford. So what did we have to do? The steps in the process involve a self-study, which is an internal look at our curriculum, program, opportunities for students. Then an external review by community members, business leaders, higher education teachers, signature by our superintendent and board president, and finally certification through the state that we had done all of the necessary requirements. The self-study was really that first awkward picture. It really was a first time that we asked this question of how do we know we're preparing kids to be college and career ready? How do we know we're doing that? Their simple answer was, well, because we know we're teaching. But how do we know that? And that really was a step for us to look at our curriculum and say, well, in order for you to be college and career ready, you have to do this. Where do we teach kids to do this? And how do we know if they know that? And it really, this was a long process. I know Melanie talked a little bit about the fact that it took us a couple of years, and it did, because when we started this, we had a checklist and we said yes. Are we doing this? Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. But then we had to get really into the question of how do we know we're doing it? Where are we doing it? What does it look like when the kids are doing these things for us? Where do we see the standards directly tied into our classes? When we see more than one standard apply in one or more classes, is that intentional? Is that a standard we really need to concentrate on in more than one place? And finally, we knew we had to make change. We knew that when we were going to get through this self-study, it wasn't so much about finding the problems as much as where is the true starting point of the business education program and how do we move it forward. The second part was an external review, and this had probably the biggest benefit for us, and it was very nerve-wracking. Our external review committee involved two non-business teachers in the Pittsford district, a state certified CTE teacher from outside of the district, a business professor from RIT, a partner at the Flynn Marketing Agency here in Rochester, and a regional sales manager from one of the largest companies in Rochester. And those people were given our curriculum and our internal report with a list of questions that we asked. The biggest, all they focused on was, if a student took these classes, do you believe they would be college or career ready? Do we meet these checklists? Do we meet these boxes to ensure that the kids that we're preparing kids in the Pittsford Central School District and the business department to be college and career ready? And at first we started with this in a big room and all of us sitting there, and what happened is what happens a lot when you ask for feedback is we had a lot of yeah buts. We immediately said, someone would say, are you doing this? Or I don't see this, and we would immediately give the yeah, but we do it, it's just not there. So we actually backed away from it and had them do it independently, and a little bit of what we do here in Pittsford, and said, you get your chance to talk, we'll sit here quietly, and then allow us to respond. It was such a great learning experience, because things that we assumed that people would understand about our curriculum, having non-educator eyes on it, was so valuable, was just so valuable. The next part about a CTE that must be there is work-based learning. I want to make clear at this point that not every student who enrolls in business education will receive a CTE certification. We'll look at what the requirements are. But every student who gets a CTE endorsement on their diploma must have a work-based learning component. And that work-based learning component is a supervised, guided, and reflective work experience. They have to have a minimum of 150 hours of that supervised work experience within their 4 years at Pittsford schools. At the two schools, we currently have 60 students enrolled at Mendon and just under 60 students enrolled at Sutherland in the Cooperative Work Experience Program, which would qualify for this piece. One of the things that we also had to create is a work skills employability profile. The external review committee was so important to this work, because they helped us create this list of employability skills. What are they currently looking for in their students' knowledge of work-based skills? And a lot of it was things that were going to be very hard for us to put a test score on. Communication, professionalism, punctuality, which then went right back to that work experience, because we know there's things that students learn best by doing, and sometimes work is one of those. They have to show attendance, they have to keep their grades up across their curriculum, including but not limited to CTE, and pass a 3-part assessment. So this is where we are now. Pittsford currently, at the end of last year in June, was approved by the state to have 2 CTE programs. These 2 programs were decided after looking at the current enrollment, what students take, as well as looking at data that came from Mr. Kimmerer's office about future graduates and what they enroll in. Past graduates and what they graduate and enroll in college. So we have a business management and entrepreneurship track and a marketing track, which are our 2 most popular college majors. You can see up there that the students must complete, they have a requirement for which classes they have to take, as well as a half unit, 150 hours of work experience. If they do this, they get a seal on their diploma that they have a career and technical endorsement. And this is really the future, and this is what I'm most excited about. This year, we started our school year at Mendon High School and across the high schools with really focusing our work around what is the vision of Pittsford Central Schools. And it was so great for us as a department, because the CTE work lends itself so great to this. Because CTE has a recertification process. Every 5 years we have to recertify. And in order to do that, we have to have a direct accountability and partnership with business and community at the recertification level. We must show growth and improvement, and there is room and requirement that we add both student and family members to that review committee. Also, it really models this love of continual learning. Again, this wasn't something that we had to do. The business department chose to do this because we thought it was what's right. It's been a lot of work and a lot of learning for us, and I think that every one of us would say it's been nothing but a positive experience. It's also one way to dissolve the line between business and community. We really are bringing in businesses on the review committee. We're looking for new voices, new businesses that will be part of saying, what are those skills necessary for people to be successful in this world of work and the future one? And finally, it really is a step in the right direction for students to be able to personalize their educational experience. We now offer a way for students to receive the accolades for being a business student that they may have been missing in the past. Is there any questions?
Can I just, before you jump in with questions, I'm sorry, I just want to also acknowledge again the significance of this work Casey just referenced. He kind of slid over it quickly. This is a process that they will have to continue to go through every 5 years for recertification. And I think for me, one of the most powerful things that's come out of this process is it really opened up in the department some very deep and challenging and purposeful conversations about the curriculum, about common assessments, that's brought about higher quality curriculum and much greater alignment in the curriculum and instruction in the business department between the two schools. And really importantly, it's done in a way that probably nothing else could have done, strengthen the collaboration within and amongst all the teachers in the department, because they had to work together hand in hand to complete this process, and they all bought in 100%. Casey's telling the truth. I never came to him and said, this is something that you need to do. This totally came from members of the department wanting to seek out a way to recognize the kids and make sure that their program was of the highest quality in New York State. So it's been a really remarkable journey for the department. It certainly benefits our students. We have hundreds of students enrolled in business classes every year, and they really stand to gain, not just by that seal on their diploma, but by the work that's gone into the process behind the scenes. So thank you again.
100%. That is so important for us, is that the seal on the diploma is an extra, right? The knowledge that we're doing what's right for the kids was so important for us. And just a piece of that, tomorrow I'm speaking on a panel for CTE certifications through the state of New York, and they actually asked a representative from Pittsford schools, because we came at it from a direction that they haven't really seen before. A lot of the direction of the CTE schools has been about, an additional graduation pathway, or how do we get additional points for our state report card. And we really came at it from a place of what's best for kids and best for us as a department. What Melanie said about, we don't have a state curriculum, we don't have a Regents test, so that this really was an opportunity for us to sit down and have these conversations around why are you teaching it this way? What is it? How is it working? And what can we do to make it better? So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey.
Does anyone have questions?
Just really quickly, first of all, congratulations. Great for the kids, great for the district.
Thank you.
And just quickly, this is a NYSED sanctioned, or who
so
applies this?
New York State Board of New York State Education Department. Yes, certification through the state.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And how many schools offer this program, Casey? Do you know?
So currently there's about 1,100 schools in New York State that have some CTE programs. These programs are range. Some schools have them in things like farming. So that this career and technical education has a wide variety, and it really tries to meet all of them. In the Rochester area, the exemplar district prior to Pittsford was Fairport, and their size, they currently, just to give you an idea of how many students they have go through their program, last year they had 33 students receive the CTE endorsement at Fairport High School.
And have you received any feedback from higher institutions regarding this program?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the questions in the slide is on college credit. So in the business department, lots of our lots of our classes offer college credit. And at open house and when we interact with parents, one of the questions we always get is, does this credit transfer? What colleges does it go to? And what the CTE at the state has said is that the higher education and our RIT professor who looked at our internal review to do the external review said that this is a great step to ensuring that you have a high quality curriculum that will benefit the students and ensure that that credit transfers. So there has been some really good conversations around that.
That's great. Anyone else? Thank you so much, Casey.
Thank you.
And
Thank
please
you.
be sure to thank the staff. Okay, special education report, Elizabeth. Thank you. Superintendent's report, Mike.
There is a need for an executive session this evening to discuss current litigation.
May I have a motion, please? Pete and Robin. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Just to recognize that probation and tenure policy is in the consent agenda, and we do have the first reading of budget adoption, 5130, if there are any questions at this point. Okay, I have some other pieces of information. This Saturday at 9 a.m. is our homecoming parade. So if board members, central office team, audience members want to attend, it's on Main Street in Pittsford. We'll be there about 8:45, and we'll be part of judging the kids' signs this year. Update on COVID. We started this week our testing protocol, which means that any staff member that is not vaccinated can elect to be tested. So we're working through that process right now. I feel like it's going smooth. We are also extending this to long-term subs, coaches, contractors, etc. Special thanks to Jeff and his team, Shayna and her team for orchestrating a lot of this work. It's a lot of data collection that we have to report on weekly. Our cases as of this morning for the district range anywhere between 0 cases in a building to up to 3. This number is obviously fluid, but I feel like we're doing a really good job with mitigation. We probably will be going back to reporting out by building cases again on Wednesdays. Last year, we did this, and then we ended up stopping towards the end of the year, bless you, for a few different reasons. One was some conflict with what's happening at the county's reporting to the state reporting to our reporting, and which is the most up-to-date, which I feel is resolved now. And then also the sentiments. This was going on for so long that people felt overwhelmed with getting the numbers every day. But since we're in a new school year, we have a different type of variant we're dealing with, and people are certainly seem interested. We will begin that process. Another call for your help for everyone that's out there, and I'm not sure to what extent all of you are up to speed on this, but there's a really disturbing Tic Tac challenge that is out there for education specifically. So if you think about Tic Tac and think about the different challenges that typically adolescent age students are involved in, and they ask you to do something, they challenge you to do it, and then you videotape yourself doing it. So one of the positive challenges was the ice bucket challenge. It went to something real positive, and you saw a lot of goodwill happening with like the ice bucket challenge. We're in a position now where we're dealing with something really disturbing, and can't stress enough how we do need your help to reinforce this at home. I did ask the principals to share a message with with their families to also reinforce this at home. But in September, the challenge was to vandalize schools. In October, which we're in right now, is the challenge to smack a staff member and to record it and to post it. And these things are national. So these aren't Tic Tac challenges for Pittsford. These are Tic Tac challenges across the nation. And if you Google it, you can see where it's happened, examples of how it's happened. And then it goes all the way through June, which is flip off the front office. There's a month for to encourage theft in schools. And so this is all of the bad wrapped up into social media that you can imagine. So we will continue to communicate with students and parents about these types of things that are happening on their social media platforms. But again, this is something where pulling your child aside for 10, 5, 4, 3 minutes and sharing how inappropriate this is and how it's a great example of not living our mission or your values. So I want to talk about some of the recent events, and I'm going to talk a little bit globally about some terms and processes. So we went through one of the most disturbing things that we can imagine. So if we back this up, our summer, we came off of working collaboratively with 80 plus people to focus on 2 days of working on our equity goals. We came out, and hopefully you've seen what our plans are for the school year. Hopefully you heard from Park Road what's happening in their building relative to equity and inclusion. Feeling really good about that going into the school year. Feeling really good about not only having these goals, but an equity coordinator to help us move towards those goals and spending time with staff on opening day around equity and inclusion. The year felt really good starting off as far as being on the right path. And then on a Friday, we did receive a disturbing notification Friday evening around a video that was posted. So I want to share with you what happens when things like that occur from my lens. You've seen in some of my communications that you hear me say words like, this is not going to be tolerated, people will be held accountable to the highest level, and in doing so without getting into specifics. I would also share that it is a struggle in talking about student discipline in front of a community. It's a struggle trying to convey that things are okay or will be okay or they're being taken care of when there are other factors that you can't share. So not sharing that this is what happened in this case, but there are things, investigations where things involve mental health that are very personal and private to a family. There's things that happen when there's special needs or students with IEPs or different disabilities that are tough to communicate. There's also things that happen where there's a lot of different agencies that are involved and a lot of communication sharing and a lot of information coming in from a lot of different places. So in this particular incident, when I share with you the highest level of accountability, it means that we will take a case like this to the highest possible part we can, the highest level we can, which is a superintendent's hearing. So I want to just walk you through what that's like, because most of us have never heard, I've never shared what a superintendent hearing entails, primarily because we really don't have many superintendent hearings, period. So if you think about a superintendent's hearing, you can think about it almost like a courtroom. This is where we hire someone to come in. Actually, let me back up. So what the law states is we can suspend someone for 5 days. And anything beyond those 5 days, we have to have a superintendent's hearing if we feel it's warranted. So let's just make sure we're on the same page with that. So in a superintendent's hearing means you're suspended at a 5-day minimum, and then we need a hearing officer to hear your case to see what that extension would or would not look like. So a superintendent hearing means that we have a hearing officer that's impartial. We hire out this year someone outside of the district, not associated with the Pittsford Central School District in any way, shape, or form. And that person brings all parties that are in the hearing to a point where they all have to swear in. So they have to take an oath that they're going to be honest. The hearing officer then reviews everyone's rights and the rules for the room. And those rules have to be followed according to the hearing officer. At that point, the district presents evidence to the hearing officer, and then the other side has an opportunity to cross-examine the district's evidence, cross-examine with any applicable questions. And then once that's done, then the hearing officer will get into a guilt phase and determine based on the evidence. So a lot of times at this point there's a recess, and the hearing officer will look at what's presented on both sides, make an impartial judgment about what would be appropriate. So the first thing that person does is say guilty or innocent. And let's go down the path of guilty. So if one is found guilty, then the next phase is called a manifestation hearing that we have to have. And the manifestation hearing is for students with disabilities to ascertain whether or not the student's disability played a role in the behavior. Let's continue down the path of, let's say the manifestation hearing showed that it did not have an impact. Then people are brought back in as a whole group, and the district can present additional evidence. Evidence like attendance records, previous behavior, etc. And then the other side can bring in any other additional witness, like character witnesses, evidence rather, like character witnesses. Then the hearing officer takes all of this and then makes a determination of, given all of this, here's the recommendation. So that's the highest level a district can go through relative to taking something serious and bringing it to the highest level. So when I share, or as I shared, when we say this is, people are going to be held to the highest level, that is the highest level. And the hearing officer will then bring to me a recommendation relative to what the rest of the consequences should be beyond the 5-day suspension. The other thing so after that happens, things aren't done, because the last thing that we want is to say someone is suspended for, let's just say months, several months. We still owe it to that student to provide support. What we don't want is a member of our community, any member of our community, to have to leave school for several months and come back with a mindset of not feeling connected or supported in any way. So in different types of hearing outcomes, you'll often see many of us as part of a support system for both families, or if one family needs more support, we will work with that. We also feel responsible for restorative practice during the point of suspensions. We also want to make sure mental health is being addressed during long-term suspensions. We want to make sure that a behavior is not repeated. We want to make sure that when it is time for a student to return, that he or she feels like they have the tools to come back and be successful, and also never repeat again the previous behavior. So when this process ends with a hearing, it doesn't end, and it really never ends, to be quite honest. We are involved heavily in the lives of students to make sure that when they come back, prior to when they come back, and when they're here, that there is no threat, and to the best extent possible, that there is a point of restoration. So that's the highest level. That explains to all of you and to the board again what a superintendent's hearing is like, giving you a flavor of what happens post superintendent's hearing. And I also want to address the differences, if you will, between a superintendent's hearing and an investigation. Because while this is happening, we also have in the news and in a lot of social media incidences at Mendon High School relative to fans and players with the soccer program. So when there's an allegation, if we were just to take this situation as it is right now, we go through as long as process is needed to try to ascertain where the truth is, and then at the same time working with, similar to the hearing, the consequence and the restorative piece. The hard part for me and for other superintendents and for other building principals is that a lot of times there's an accusation and people are found guilty automatically through social media without an investigation happening. So I think it's important for everyone to understand that my role is to be impartial and to get to the bottom of what happened. And when this happens, so soon as social media grabs hold of it, a lot of it's out of our hands, and we can't comment on things because we use the phrase, it's an ongoing investigation. While all of that's happening, people are getting hurt all over the place. So we have people of color that are watching this, and it hits them right here, and it's not the first time they've been hit here. In here, a pit in their stomach. And here we go again. And it's real pain. We have the person that's being accused, who may or may not be guilty or innocent, who's living this out on social media. And then we have the accuser, who is wrought with other sides of social media being thrown at them. And so the hard part during an investigation of this sort is that there's a lot of stuff going back and forth, and it causes a lot of harm. I would also mention that when this stuff happens, we're also dealing with kids trying to internalize all of this stuff that's happening, and then the damage it's causing them on depending on the scenario, both sides. So where we are right now is we've been doing student interviews. We've interviewed site supervisors that are right there in our student section. We've interviewed coaches. We've interviewed players. We are in the process of reviewing more game film. We take into consideration parent and spectator observations and accounts. We meet with and interview referees, superintendents, so Greece and Pittsford superintendents, Greece and Pittsford athletic directors are comparing our notes and what our investigations show. And as late or as early as today, we received new evidence. And so at some point, you have to look at everything that you're sharing, and you can come to one of three conclusions. Either based on the evidence, it doesn't support the allegations. Based on the evidence, it does support the allegations. Or we're at the point where each district will have a different perspective of what happened. So we are now at the point where we're finalizing, looking at the last pieces of evidence, as I believe. And I would ask for people to not jump to conclusions on what happened. I would ask for people to know and that when things like this happen, and what happened before, that we will be as thorough and as impartial to get to the bottom of the truth, so we can get to the truth at the end. So we're at the point where we had two major things, one accused, one definitely happened. We've gone through processes for both, and we've left a lot of people injured along the way, including people that are here, our community, people around the table, our staff, our kids, our students of color in particular. There's a lot of hurt that's out there. And so recognizing that hurt, we knew there were things that we had to do to expedite many of our equity goals. And so we kind of had to take a fast approach to address a lot of different things. So we had to have time with the students, so we had an assembly with our secondary students, with the notion of talking about the impacts of social media, talking about the impacts of racism, talking about behavior, talking about DASA, our code of conduct, and having that FaceTime with them. We had emergency staff meeting because our staff were similar to all the rest of us, saying, what the heck is happening here? To share with our staff where we stand and how the best thing in the world that we can be doing right now is loving our kids and knowing that our kids are carrying a lot right now. We referred to the concept of invisible baggage quite a bit, where kids are coming in to our halls and our classrooms with things that you can't see that weigh heavily on them. We also are in the process of communicating with our community around our very next community engagement piece, which will be community circles where it will be facilitated by Peary and the Children's Institute to bring the community back in and allow the community to have that process of sharing their thoughts and the district listening and providing feedback as part of that healing process. We're expediting that part of student engagement and working with our students to create an advisory committee to the district. That work has begun already. We're also working with places like URMC and the Monroe County Office of Mental Health to discuss supports for BIPOC students and staff, as well as our students and families that may be in need of additional supports. Our efforts around professional development is ongoing, including this Friday and including next week with administrators around racism. And the last thing I would offer is that we are pursuing, we're investigating different programs such as Interrupting Racism Through Youth Voice, which would be a 1-hour session for staff to be part of, to see what that involves, and then ideally bring it to students so student leaders can be part of supporting one another. So we have a lot going on right now, and we also we're in the final stages of our equity coordinator position. And when you have any kind of position, there's three choices at the end. One is you find a number one candidate and you offer the job and they accept. The second one is they reject, and if number two is someone that you're recommending, they may accept. Or number three, as you go through the process, and if the pool isn't as strong as you had hoped, we can start the process over again. So we are at the final phase of the equity coordinator position, and looking towards that person is really helping us expedite the changes that we're hoping for. I think that is it. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, Mike, I don't think you mentioned the date for the community circles, which is October 13th, 6:30 to 8 p.m.
And I believe that will be at Calkins Road. Thank you.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please? Renee? Robin? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Old business. Anyone? New business. I do have a public comment to make to our community in response to last week. And this is on behalf of the entire Board of Education. The past year and a half, we've been focused on keeping our community safe during a public health crisis. Recent events remind us that our students' physical, emotional, and psychological safety is and must remain a priority throughout our schools and our greater community. As a district, we appreciate and welcome the significant role we play in the development of every student that enters through our school buildings. Our students spend an important portion of each day in our care, and we willingly assume responsibility for that care and hold ourselves accountable when we inadvertently make mistakes that disrupt it. We work very hard to support and sustain every child's continued growth and development. Joining us in this effort, and there's no more noble effort, are their families and friends, including the broader Pittsford community. Together, we must reiterate our commitment to our district's mission statement of working collaboratively to inspire and prepare our students to be their best, do their best, and make a difference in the lives of others. In that respect, we commend our upstanding students who saw something and said something. Through their actions, they personified our mission by calling out racism and reporting threats of violence in our community. In doing so, they played an essential role in keeping our community safe. Although some of the recent incidents occurred outside of our schools, and as a result, outside of our immediate control, we recognize the adverse and traumatic impact these acts have on our students and families. Feeling unwelcomed and unsafe in school is unacceptable. There's absolutely no room for racism or acts of hatred within the walls of our schools or in our community. We can assure you that any reported incident is thoroughly investigated, as Superintendent Pirro pointed out this evening, and appropriate disciplinary action is taken swiftly, as was the case last week and over the weekend. It's imperative that our entire community join us to ensure the safety and well-being of our student body. Finally, please know that our code of conduct, our equity policy, and core values outline the structures, behaviors, and protocols that we expect from our students and our families, and that our students and families expect of their school district. We encourage our Pittsford Central School District families to review our policies in light of recent events as we enter this new school year. Behaviors that violate our policies will not be tolerated, and offenders will be held accountable. In closing, for the district and our partners in education, a large part of ensuring all students are safe is educating students and families on our commitment to equity and inclusion. For years, this has been at the top of the district's agenda. We have made considerable progress, though we readily acknowledge more needs to be done, and we need your support. Be informed, engage with your children, your friends, and your neighbors. Join us at our upcoming forums and community circles on October 13th and constructively share your thoughts and ideas. It truly does take a village and a town to raise a child, and we welcome your partnership. Thank you. With that, we will begin public comment. Before we begin, we did have some people write in. I'm going to give preference to those that have come because we have quite a few people here this evening. And I'm going to read the protocol statement associated with public comment. The Pittsford Board of Education values transparency and public comments made during its meetings. As such, the Pittsford Board of Education provides this agenda item at its regular meetings. Board of Education meetings are not public forums. Rather, they're business meetings held in public where dialogue is not normally conducted with the audience members. The purpose of this agenda item is for the board to receive respectful and constructive feedback, opinions, and information from district residents. If a person who is not a district resident wishes to address the board, they must clearly state their purpose. Comments are taken under advisement by the Board of Education and Superintendent of Schools. Respect and civility are required during these meetings, particularly as we have students routinely attending as part of their coursework. Comments should be in reference to an interest or topic, not an individual. Each speaker will have the floor for no more than 3 minutes. You can have 3 meetings, but minutes would be better. And yielding time amongst speakers is not permitted. The board president reserves the right to limit the total amount of speaking time. In an effort to avoid repetitiveness, if speakers are attending with other residents with similar input, we ask that the group designate one person to address the board. For speakers who do not follow meeting and decorum protocols, the speaker's privilege to use the floor will no longer be recognized by the Board of Education. I would just ask, a lot of you wrote on your cards but did not include your address, so when you are called up to the microphone, if you will please clearly state your address, that would be most helpful. And I have a timekeeper to my left. You can see our time up there. We will begin with Jeremy Schur.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jeremy Schur. I live at 4 Chipmunk Trail. I'm a parent of 2 Park Road elementary students. After the Unity Rally in Pittsford on Saturday, people in the audience made a demand, which was do more. And as a white man and a parent of white children, I'm here to echo that demand and to make it myself. Do more. Do more to confront and resolve the crisis of anti-black racism in our schools. This is not a crisis that is based on one incident. It's a crisis based on an endless stream of anti-blackness that we know about because black students and their parents in our schools tell us it is happening. Our schools are a community, and as a community, we respect and protect all of our members. We do more than say that black students in our community deserve protection and respect. We ensure that they get it, just as we would if people were targeted because they were gay, trans, Muslim, Jewish, neurodivergent, or disabled, for example. The community believes and values the words of black students and their parents when they say that the racism they deal with is constant and not the result of an isolated incident. A community gives unconditional support to black children, those who stand up and speak, and those who don't. and it promises unconditional support, protection, and respect for those students. If this school cannot make those promises specifically and directly, how can it call itself a community? If the school cannot confront its problems to protect its members, it must hire professionals who can. It must set clear goals and initiatives and give updates on when and how those goals and initiatives are being met. And it must prioritize anti-racism policy, concrete policy, as if it were something as integral to the school as buses and lunch. A community doesn't relegate black student speech to walkouts and rallies, because those events occur as a last resort, out of desperation. Those events occur because the voices of black students are not being heard. And the community understands that an injury to one of us is an injury to all of us. And that is, again, why, as a white parent of white students, this is my problem. And I'm asking this board and this administration to do more. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Next, I have Nicole Sidhu.
Hi, Ramon. I missed you.
Hi, Nicole.
How are you? So
If
I'm
you could
the
just
mom-
state your
Oh,
address
sorry. My
first.
name is Nicole Sidhu, and I live at 39 McCord Woods Drive.
Thanks.
So I'm the mom of 3 brown-skinned kids in the district, and those kids have experienced some racist incidents, both in Pittsford and another district. And so I'm glad the district is paying attention to matters of race. All children deserve to feel welcome, protected, and celebrated in their identity in the school, and it's absolutely unacceptable for kids to be exposed to racist bullying in the schools. However, I do have a couple of concerns. First, I'm not sure that the highly publicized and dramatic nature of the district's recent attempts to deal with racism are actually in the best interests of the kids. A blow-by-blow account of the school's investigation raises emotions in the community and puts kids of color on the spot in the district, and I'm worried that it will actually have a chilling effect on kids wanting to report racist incidents if they feel that their reports are going to create huge waves. My own kids didn't want their reports to be an explosive matter of public debate. They didn't want to ruin anyone's life. They just wanted the behavior to stop. And they wanted to feel that the teachers and the administration were behind them. And they wanted to feel that the authorities in the district would explain to the other kids what was wrong with what they were saying and doing. So still, it was hard. It was very hard for them because they have to go to school with those other kids. And it was tough. So swift, efficient, calm, I think is the best way. Fair is the best way because these kids coexist in a community. And we don't want kids of color to feel like, I can't report because I don't want to be, on the spot and in the spotlight. Second, I think we need to keep incidents involving students in perspective. Racism among the students and racist bullying is not acceptable and must be dealt with. However, let's keep in mind that schools are not going to solve problems involving race in this country. Saying racism is bad should not translate into draconian punishments for kids. The fact of the matter is that we live in highly segregated communities in Rochester with the majority black, poor population downtown sitting side by side with well-to-do majority white suburbs. That's written in our own school population. 3% African American kids in Pittsford, 14% in Monroe County. So there's a problem there. But kids didn't cause those problems, and schools didn't cause those problems. Those are adult problems, deeply rooted in history and demanding adult solutions. So the burden of those issues lies with adults, and we shouldn't forget that. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Julia.
Good evening. My name is Julia. I live on Chartersfield Run. First of all, thank you for all your dedicated work to our schools, teachers, parents, and our children. At the same time, I would like to present my concern regarding Pittsford's recent reactions to student incidents. Without rigorous investigations, our school quickly jumped into conclusions. Our high school students spend study hours and class time for walkouts, and they spend more school time attending assemblies in the auditorium for speeches. Although DEI is important in education, it is only one of many focuses to all schools. Anti-racism is, in addition, only part of DEI. Moreover, biased anti-racist voices create confusions and fear among parents, and they block incidents from being reported as a consequence. The fact is, biased anti-racism voices are not even part of DEI. As a mom, I have met parents of all sorts of identities. They moved from Brighton, Fairport, and even California to Pittsford. They're here because of our high-quality education. Unfortunately, many parents of all sorts of identities are now pulling their kids away from our schools. They're disappointed by politics flowing into our schools, as well as a reduced quality of education. School board, do we really want our schools to ignore the majority of our parents' wishes and only focus on the loud voices? When good and dedicated parents leave our schools, we will no longer be the PCSD that we love. On the main page of the Department of Education, it says, our mission is to promote student achievement and the preparation for global competitiveness by fostering educational excellence and ensuring equal access. I sincerely hope the board can make great decisions for the majority of the silent but dedicated parents that love PCSD. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. Okay, Crystal?
Hello, I'm Crystal Petit-Frere at 14 South Pittsford Hill Lane. I'm a parent of two, my 8th graders at Calkins Road Middle School. The original plan for tonight was to tag team parent. My 8th grade son planned to come with me, and my husband was going to stay home with our 4-year-old. However, I'm here tonight while my son is watching a sports game. I think it's over now, but because he's tired, he needed a break. So while we teach him and we live by advocacy, his question to me today was, what can I ask them? I don't know what to say. They already should know. He's 13 and he's already tired of saying. I was out of the country last Friday when news of the racist and violent video went viral. As a parent of 2 children in the district, one of school age, it was unnerving. However, add a new lens to that. As a parent of children of color, I was terrified. I was not home with them. I immediately contacted my family to check in and make sure they were safe and okay. Then I started asking questions to staff, questions to committees, questions to faculty. No one had any answers. No one had any ability to provide comfort to my family and to other families of color. So since last Friday, I've been in motion. More's unfolded, yet very little communication has gone out to the district families. More incidents not related to the racist violent video have surfaced. The district is now in reactive mode, but families of color have been targeted on social media, in person, and in school for years. The Board of Education was elected to serve and protect 100% of the student population. Why are we continuing to fail to protect the 4% of Black students and instead sweeping these racist and violent acts under the rug to protect the white students' futures? Our children have futures too. Our call to action for the district: contract and hire professional experts to do a restorative circles. Pittsford needs new eyes with experience in racially driven emotional trauma. This is traumatic for our children. Teach by action. See something, say something only works if the leadership puts action behind their promises. Why do we keep looking back as a district? Why do we keep showing our kids they do not matter? Emails do not speak volumes, actions do. And require all staff and faculty complete more sets of training pertaining to D&I. It is a thing, and embed it in our culture as an everyday thing, not as a scramble to remove our presence in the media. You all have an email invitation waiting in your inbox. Some have already responded. It's to an event put on by the Levine Center to End Hate on Sunday, October 17th. That's a start. It includes some of your colleagues from local districts, and it is free. I urge you to attend and reflect. Lastly, please look and really reflect on your responses in the recent events. If they instead impacted your children in Henrietta and Victor, would you have responded at all? Yes. I'll leave this with you in this quote from MLK. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. The ball's in your court to become voices in your silence. Thank you.
Thanks, Crystal. Fataha.
Hi, my name is Taraha Tavakumar Slavin. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and my address is 3 Water Drive. This is my son, TJ. I'd asked him to speak, but he was a little nervous, so he's coming up with me. So mine is more about words matter. When people see and hear the words, no credible threat, it downplays the situation. It minimizes what is happening and the response. As a therapist, one specific situation I would need to break confidentiality is if someone threatened to hurt someone else. The video that surfaced was a threat. The student in the video reported having a gun to violently hurt a group of people. This is a threat. Regardless of whether the weapon is real or not, it is still a threat. This is a threat to every Black and brown student in the district. It's not isolated to just one school. This is an act of terror and creates trauma. This is racial trauma to a huge group of our kids, regardless if they were immediately impacted or not. Every Black and brown child and family were affected and threatened. I ask, if you saw this as a credible threat, would you have allowed the student to be at the school on Monday? If you had acknowledged the harm it did to the safety of all BIPOC students, would you have acted differently? Finally, why has the board been silent until tonight? You all signed a governing mission to value and uphold student success and positive relationships with the community, in addition to many other things. But you have all failed to protect our kids and definitely have failed with positive community relationships. Remember, being silent is an action. Thank you.
I just want to respond to one part of that.
Sure.
This morning I had a parent advisory council and I shared this part. Every situation is different. When something happens for something on a Friday, you have to interview the other student. So sometimes a student may come in just to be interviewed. I would say that in a situation like this, if an interview needs to happen, it probably should have been at a different place. So I do want to acknowledge that part of it. And I would also say, just to our previous speaker's comment, Crystal, we have trained people that are coming in and doing restorative circles. We do have trained psychologists, psychiatrists, and social workers that are coming in to work with kids in different ways as well. So just want to make sure we're acknowledge that.
Thanks, Mike. Catherine Doyle.
Catherine Doyle, 6 Round Trail Drive. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My daughter started in the Pittsford School District May of her year in kindergarten. Yes, I am the world's worst mother. I made her change schools that late. And she recently graduated with the class of 2020. The other thing you need to know is that my daughter is Chinese. It was really fun that last year at school. So we spent over an hour talking about her experiences in light of this new incident. And so I think one of the things that particularly struck me, we have this, see something, say something, right? Well, shouldn't it apply to teachers as well? In her freshman year, they were reading that old chestnut, To Kill a Mockingbird. And Melanie, thank you at last for diversifying the curriculum the minute she left. One of the kids got up in a conversation in the class on that book and said, well, we elected Obama. There's no more racism. Things are fine now. And so I said, as I often had to do in the 4 years she was at Mendon, so what did your teacher say? And the answer was, nothing. He just went on to the next person. So in my life, I have taught Introduction to U.S. Government, and we've brought up some of the same issues. And those have been difficult conversations because there are a diversity of opinions. But the one thing I never tried to do was let a teachable moment like that pass. Why do you think the election of Obama ended racism? What's your evidence for that? But teachers are scared to have these types of conversations, A, because I don't think that we've had the professional development to help them facilitate those conversations, and B, because they're afraid of all the white parents who are going to call up and say, why'd you pick on my kid in class again? Education is supposed to broaden the mind, isn't it? So I would say that we need to do better, and that I talked to my daughter, and her opinion was, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it.
Thank you, Catherine. Deepika Singh.
Hi, Deepika Singh, 15 Smethwick Court. It was my understanding that that student didn't come in just for an interview, that he was actually in the classroom until fourth period. Anyway, recently in several unrelated incidents, students engaged in racist monkey chants, the casual exchange of racist speech, and most alarmingly, a student brandished a gun on social media, stating that he carried it, quote, to kill the N-word. The administration has been complacent and negligent for decades in dealing with these well-known and well-documented racial issues. The Inclusivity Advisory Committee, IAC, was created 3 years ago, and I'm confused as to what its role is. I know that several IAC committee members have resigned, feeling that it wasn't actually working towards its goal. This is how I saw it utilized. During Black History Month 2 years ago, a class at Park Road tried to recognize 100 Black inventors. The project was an abomination that featured numerous photos of Caucasians representing Black inventors. Most disturbing was the district's response. When Mr. Pirro was initially invited to speak with Evan Dawson, he declined, stating that the parent who reported the discrepancies, my husband Jerome, had already met with the principal and this IAC and was satisfied with the district's response. That was a blatant lie. He had not met with either, and he was not satisfied with the district's response. When Jerome actually eventually did meet with the principal cited confidentiality as the reason that he couldn't go through the photos together collaboratively with Jerome. These pictures, without any student names, were plastered all over the hallways of Park Road for everyone to see, but suddenly they were confidential. Mr. Pirro, you're always calling out for the parents to please help. Here, you had a Black parent willing to work collaboratively with you on a botched Black history project, and you weren't interested in his perspective. Then you went on record to the media misrepresenting the facts. You understated the quantity of errors present and didn't even own up to the number of photos that we sent you. You also stated that the errors were acknowledged in the classroom, but we know they weren't. Further confusing about this IAC, we were told that the kids could not be re-educated properly because the issue had become too political. But it was an IAC representative chosen by the district itself on social media making it political. Now, fast forward to today, it is of no surprise that we have students in schools that can callously and casually scream racial slurs from the sidelines without the coach uttering a word. It's so acceptable that it's become a fun game, as in this boy making this terrifying video just to one-up his friends and how racist he could be. The district's response and lack thereof continue every time racism comes up in the district and every time you act surprised. Mr. Pirro, you have been prioritizing your reputation and the reputation of the districts over the safety and well-being of our children. Your dishonesty, misleading comments, empty promises, and lack of transparency has led to the loss of trust in you and the board. Board members, I'm almost done. Board members, you have been elected and entrusted by the community to do good for our children. Why have you been silent? What's your end point? What will it take for you to act? For someone to be bullied into suicide? For someone to be shot and killed? It's your responsibility to hold the superintendent accountable or to find alternative leadership when the current one is failing. I implore you to do your job.
Thank you, Deepika. Do you want to say something?
If I could just respond to a couple of the comments there. The first one, I would say, if I were to do the Park Road situation all over again, I would do it differently. My own reflection and learning would say that needed to be dealt differently. And so I apologize for Jerome for not meeting with you directly and not undoing some of the things that happened. That's on me, and I will accept responsibility for that. The second part, I would just ask for everyone to be careful about what happened at that Mendon game until there is a finding. We do not accept racism, but we do not also want kids to be accused of something if it's not happening. So we need to be really careful about rushing to judgment there. Thank you.
Sadie Shrama.
Hi, my name is Sadie Shrama. I live at 30 Jordan Road. It's good to see everybody in the flesh. I'm typically an observer from home, but I did feel compelled to be here today to show support and solidarity with the students of color who have been so impacted in a very public way over the past few weeks, but also over and over and over again through the history of our school district. I'm here to ask the board why and how this keeps happening and what your plans are to change. Mr. Pirro, I was glad to see that you called out the racist behavior in your second email to parents last week. It was important that you use the word racism. I'm glad you did. It shows a step forward that gives me some hope. However, these steps are just so small and they are so slow. Every time racism occurs in our school district, it seems as though the reaction is, how could this happen here? This isn't us. But clearly it is. If you talk to former students who graduated 10, 20, 30 years ago, it's clear that racism has always been a part of the culture at PCSD. We have a reputation of academic excellence, with some swept under the rug racism. Do we want that to be the legacy of our school? Why is that a reputation we're trying to preserve? It's time for bigger and bolder steps. We need an anonymous reporting system where students can report racism when they experience it or when they see it. We need swift and strict consequences for students displaying racist behavior, and we need more than a vague email before a news story breaks. Your second email was better. The information tonight is better, but would it have happened if the stories weren't in the media? I don't know. Parents need to know when this happens and that it's being taken very seriously, because when a student who appears in a racist, threatening video on Friday is in school Monday morning, it doesn't give us much faith. And when the Board of Education fails to make a public statement condemning this behavior until tonight, it doesn't give us much faith. Anti-racism should be so undeniably embedded in our school culture that our leaders are talking about it every chance they get. It should be woven into every meeting, every conversation, every open house, sporting event, theatrical production, band concert. You should be emphatically telling and showing parents and students that we are actively changing the culture. Instead of being known as the school district that is apologetically racist, let's be so unapologetically anti-racist that that's what they're writing stories about. If you take those bolder steps, you might get pushback from people who want to keep things the same, the folks who don't see color, but I know you can handle it, and clearly you have a lot of parents behind you too. At the Unity Rally last weekend, you may have heard the students' message to do more, and I really hope you'll listen. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Sadie. Jen Canning.
Hi, I'm Jen Canning, 21 Wrights Parkway. I want to spend a little time, though I appreciate the information on the process of what happened to the student involved in the incident. I think we need to spend a little more time on the trauma and the impact that it had on our school community. The United Way's 21-day racial equity challenge, which I understand many of you participated in, writes a different and emerging explanation of racism, contends that interpersonal racism is actually a symptom of a more fundamental system of racism, an array of cultural norms and institutional practices and policies that routinely produces racially inequitable outcomes, often without intent or malice. We have seen a string of interpersonal racist acts, not just the video, but text messages and potentially what happened at the soccer game, to name calling, to many microaggressions over many years that continue to happen and that are not addressed in a way that acknowledges the harm done to others or that promotes education and restorative justice. I was curious to see the email from the principals about the Tic Tac challenges that did acknowledge the harm to the community, that being the community of the custodians and the administrators that had to deal with this Tic Tac challenge, but that same consideration wasn't promoted in the emails regarding the incidents that affected our whole Pittsford community. These interpersonal racism issues are also creating an inequitable learning environment in our buildings, which is within the board's purview to address. The students do not feel safe, are not given the opportunity to heal, and are not satisfied with the conditions in which they are being asked to learn. At the auditorium gatherings, assemblies at the high schools, which my children attended, students asked to speak and were denied that opportunity. There is a pattern of harm that has created a culture where this behavior continues to happen. What we have been doing isn't working. By ignoring the trauma that keeps being inflicted, we fail to ensure that our students understand empathy, understand impact versus intent, and understand that their acts of racial harm will not be tolerated in the larger society. This is a disservice to all of our students. The board can and should create and ensure implementation of policies that are restorative and educative in nature, that protect students from continual trauma, and that illustrate an anti-racist stance. Our Board of Education, as elected officials, need to answer to the families, to the whole community, and address this failing of your most important constituents, the children of our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. John Sussman.
Thank you. My name's John Sussman. I live at 29 Sturbridge Lane. Just a remark about procedure. You have the opportunity to reinstate public comment at the beginning of meetings. I think that would be appropriate in light of the length. I'm the parent of 3 children in this district. In 8 years of addressing its leadership and this board, both publicly and in private communication, in volunteer settings, and a district committee appointment, I have never invoked my children's status as among 3% of black students in Pittsford. Not when a poorly conceived Black History Month assignment was displayed in the hallways that they walk each day. Not when one came home with a homework assignment containing a racist cartoon. Not when a slavery worksheet brought shame upon our district. Not when some community members used procedure to block the creation of a district-level equity position in an organization meant to advocate for children and families in this district. Not when a vile word was allegedly deployed on the track and playing fields that my children use each day. And not when a gun, ostensibly for harming black people, was displayed by a member of this community. Maybe I felt to do so would be unfair to my children. Maybe I felt this body would incorrectly see my worries as the narrow interest of my own family rather than all students. Maybe I absorbed rhetoric that mislabels advocacy for safety as divisive or partisan. But when my family discusses these matters at the dinner table, they are personal. So tonight, at least, I won't pretend I'm not without a pit of dread and worry for their welfare in my stomach. We are not making fast enough progress on the equity issues that have demanded our attention for years. Hiring, professional development, achievement. We cannot be the best until this progress occurs. So neighbors, you are my neighbors, after all. Let's double down. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Annalise?
Hello, I'm going to be a little repetitive. I think a lot of us have similar ideas. The first is transparency. I just wanted to echo what the students have been saying. They're saying things have been swept under the rug. When they're reported, they feel no action is taken to the point where they don't trust administration and they're not reporting. I know you have to respect people's privacy, but when people are being held accountable, but the students are being harmed in the broader community. So we just need to build that trust with all students that they feel like people are being adequately addressed and held accountable. The district keeps saying no credible threat. That's the language from law enforcement. It's dismissive of the severity of the issue at hand. The definition of credible threat is having the intent and the means to do it, right? So the law enforcement lens. And it's great that the police said that this person didn't have the intent or the means to do it. But when you continue to use that language, especially in front of students, it's dismissive. It's failing to recognize that this is a threat. This is a very real threat, and it caused real harm. Words really matter, and actions matter more. The district did dodge acknowledging the systemic racism question that I asked at the curriculum night. It said we address individual instances of racism. We need to have a shared understanding of language, including acknowledging systemic problems exist. I asked the superintendent why the district isn't taking an anti-racist stance after the Tasha Potter night. It didn't come up in the Q&A. And you said, I don't know what you mean. We've denounced racism multiple times. This is a red flag. Denouncing racism, even repeatedly, is not anti-racism. Anti-racism is ongoing action. When 3 union-endorsed Board of Education candidates were campaigning, refused to answer questions from a community-wide group on anti-racism, the 3 people released a statement. So it's not that the questions were ignored, but the word racism wasn't used. The word anti-racism wasn't used. The questions were avoided. We need to be able to talk about hard things and say hard words. And in times where there isn't a crisis, we want to be able to trust you with all of our children and to be able to discuss these things. So that needs to be built up. Like, we need to hear from you that you recognize this is a problem and that we need to be anti-racist. When a parent holds a weeping child day after day, that because they're being invalidated at school because of their identity, this is a red flag. You've been trying for years. It's been insulated. It's missed the mark. Continue to bring in outside experts. Not one day in October, but we need continued outside support. When you say it's so not Pittsford to have outside people come in with curriculum, that's a red flag. Bring in the outside people, diverse perspectives. The more, the better. Let's support all of our students. We don't need our students of color, our BIPOC youth, to have this burden every year. It's not okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Annalise. Mike Higgins?
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to listen to all of us here. I know sometimes it's not very easy. Mike Higgins, I live on Sunset Boulevard. As a parent of 3 Pittsford kids and a veteran who had the opportunity to figure out where I wanted to spend the rest of my adult years, I was privileged enough to have an opportunity to come and live in Pittsford. I lived in 7 states, been to 37 some odd countries. This is a good place. Okay, Pittsford is not without its warts, but this is a good place to raise families. And I think it's taken everybody in this room to make this place what it is right now. I'd like to take a minute to just remind people that this is a strong community. There's a reason we have the ability to come here and do this and not become some YouTube video because we act like knuckleheads. Okay, we can come here, we can disagree, we can have adult conversations about hard things. Again, I think Pittsford is a special place, and that's another example as to why. On the flip side, I think, and I would like to applaud the board for not falling into the tactic of self-flagellation and just saying, oh my God, we're all horrible, we're monsters. The fact that you've been diligent and you've taken time to come to the right answer or a more deliberative answer is appreciated by many of us. This is a great country. We weren't built on guilt by accusation. While it is not, having been on the other side of the table, having done investigations, it's hard to wait until you get all of the information. It is hard to look at somebody and not come to a conclusion before all the information is there. It's difficult. And I appreciate the fact that you're taking the time to come to a more complete answer. As I walked in here, it's my first time in the building. I did notice children learn what they live, the sign just outside this room here. I would highly recommend that everybody in here read that before you walk out, and then read it again and think about the kids that we're trying to raise here. There's a lot of good on that plaque out there. I think I'm going to put one up in my house. Madam President, one thing you said earlier, I agree, but I disagree. It doesn't just take a village, it takes parents to raise good kids. The issues that we're dealing with, parents are part of the solution. They're also probably part of the problem. Last thing I would like to say is, again, having lived all over the country, chosen to raise kids in a fantastic school district with great neighbors that I care dearly about, as we move forward to find more solutions to this, let's please remember that diversity is more than skin deep. Look around the neighborhood, look around our schools, look around this room here. It takes all of us to make this better, and I think until we listen to everybody and honor everybody, it's not going to happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So with that, we do have write-ins, but given the fact that all of these write-ins are repetitive of what's already been shared, what I'd like to offer those who did write in, we will respond to each one of you via email tomorrow if you have any remaining questions. Did I cover everyone who did fill out a card this evening? I want to make sure everyone that's here has had an opportunity. Okay, with that, I'm going to close down public comment session. And may I have a motion to adjourn to executive, please? Thanks, Pete. And I need a second. Robin? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much to the community for showing up tonight.
Thank you.